Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tome Travelers. This is episode 20, and we are going to be discussing the Black Prism chapters 2 through 46. So, spoiler warning for that. But before we get into that, we have a couple of quick announcements. Our first announcement is we are going to announce next month's book, and believe it or not, it is actually going to be The Blinding Knife, which is the second book in the Lightbringer saga.
By
I
Brent
think
Weeks.
by Brent Weeks. Yeah, it's the saga. I didn't know if it was a trilogy or not. We've been reading it. We've been enjoying it. Spoiler alert. So we're gonna go ahead and do the next one for that for next month. So you can go ahead and order it if you want to read along with us. And then as always, we have our Discord in the description of the YouTube video, which you can click on and join. And you can follow us on TikTok and all that other fun stuff. Before we get into our discussion of this month's or this week's, whatever you call it, excerpt, we have a fantasy question. Dylan, what's our fantasy question?
If we could fan cast 3 people from our favorite book, who would we fan cast?
For a live action adaptation?
Yep.
All right, who's going first with this?
I'll take it. I'm confident. This is probably the most deliberation we've had over a fantasy question.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 20 minutes of us Googling stuff. I've got the first law, and the 3 characters I picked were Glocta, Logan, and Baez. And for Glocta, I want Andy Serkis. Because I just think with like the prosthetics and the no teeth, the crazy voice, and him being all bent and broken. For Logan, Rory McCann, the guy who played the Hound in Game of Thrones. I think he's perfect for that role. They're kind of similar roles. So, you know.
Yeah.
And then for Baez, J.K. Simmons. I needed an angry, bald man who still looks like strong, but also somehow 70 at the same time.
Yep, I like it. I love the Glocta pick for Andy Serkis. What about you, Dylan? Who are you casting? What book?
So I picked Liza Lamora, obviously.
Okay.
That's my favorite. So I'm for sure. So Father Change, I got Ian McShane. And the Grey King, I got Pedro Pascal, and I'm for sure about those 2. The one that I'm kind of like still iffy on is Locke Lamora, but like we said, we Googled a bunch of stuff, and the one that kind of like jumps out at me the most is this Robert Sheehan guy. He played the guy that can see the dead people in Umbrella Academy on Netflix. But I think you do a good part. I'd have to see. He's kind of. I've only ever seen him in that role, so I'd have to see him in some other roles to like for sure say he's the guy. But I like my first 2 picks for sure, 100%. I think Ian McShane would make a awesome Father Change, especially with his voice. And then Pedro Pascal's got the look of the Grey King that I just imagined. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I think those are perfect.
Yeah. So for mine, I obviously went Cosmere, so I went Warbreaker. And I casted Lightsong, Ciri, and Vasher. So I'll Ciri first. For Ciri, I casted Grace Van Dien. She's the girl who played Chrissy in Stranger Things. If you've seen the most recent season. So I think she would make a great Ciri. Just because, you know, like, I don't know. When I see her, I pictured Ciri. So I was like, I can see it. And then Lightsong, I thought it would be fun if Tom Hiddleston played Lightsong.
I could get like a playoff Loki.
Yeah, like he can. I feel like he'd have fun with that role a lot. And then for Vasher, we all know, minor spoilers for the Cosmere, Vasher is a world hopper. And so I was thinking, who would be also in the future movies playing Vasher? And I just want Jason Momoa to be in the Cosmere. And so for Vasher, I put Jason Momoa down. Just because he also kind of fits the description of like a...
I think he's a little big.
He is a little big, but you know, I mean, he's like, Vasher's one of the best swordsmen in the Cosmere. So I'm like, I figured Jason Momoa could do that justice. I also, you know, see him yell at a specific character in another book would be funny. But yeah, that's my fan cast for Warbreaker.
The Jason Momoa one's definitely interesting.
I did say I'm throwing a random one out there, but I'm doing it.
I was interested in who you're gonna pick for Light Song, but I like the Tom because
Yeah,
like
I like that
I
pick
could
a lot.
I could see the play like him like taking
Well,
part of
he's
like the
so
Loki character
he's so
and then trying to
riddly,
make it
you
more
know.
fun too. Yeah.
I feel like he'd bring an interesting take on it. But yeah, that's our fantasy question this week. If you guys have a fantasy question you want us to answer on the podcast, you can leave a message down in our YouTube comment section, or you can join our Discord and let us know there. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and jump into episode 20 of The Tome Travelers. All right, Whitson, are you gonna hit us up with the synopsis? Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of skim it because
Yeah, there was a lot.
long-winded. There's a lot. There's a lot. So basically, chapter 2, we see Kip make his escape from Recton after seeing his friends die. Seeing a lot of his neighbors and people he grew up with die. He runs off with one of his friends. Then we jump to the Chromaria and meet the Prism, the White, the Blackguard, Gavin and Karis specifically, learn a little bit about their history. Gavin and Karis make their way to Recton. We learn some more about the Empire on the journey and the satrapies, how the magic works, Tyria and the False Prism War as they're flying the Condor. Not too much in that portion. We get a glimpse of it. Then Gavin saves Kip after his friend that's escaping with him dies. He alienates Karis in the process because he claims Kip is his bastard. Then they make the journey back to the Chromaria. He kind of tosses him headfirst into high society and leaves him. Karis is still doing okay in Tyria until we get closer to the end of this half of the book. She meets up with Corvin. And then Kip takes his super chromat test and then goes through the Thresher. Gavin intervenes and changes the result somehow. And then Liv finds out that Recton has been burned. And then we end. Chapter 46 ends.
Yeah.
Yep, we end.
So let's just all thank Whitson real quick for unintentionally just ending on a massive cliffhanger. Because like we were talking in our group chat this week, like, did we really say 46? Like, is that where we're stopping? We can't really go on to the next one because the next chapter, I'm pretty sure, is we finally get to meet Gavin's father and things are going to happen with that. And I'm just on the edge of my seat. I've been sitting here 3 days waiting for us to record this podcast so that way we can finally continue on in this book. I had a friend who's actually read this book before, so I was talking to him about it, and he just kept going, "Oh no, he didn't," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's where I'm at right now." So, thanks to Whitson, and the second we get done with this, I'll be reading that chapter. But
yeah, it really felt like chapter 46 was like the author had just finished like rolling the giant boulder up to the peak of the hill.
Oh yeah,
and then it stopped.
Yeah. It was like,
just blue balls.
Wait a second. Wait, dude. It's so good. What are you guys' thoughts so far on the book? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
You go first, Dylan. Go first. I'm gonna gush.
I'm enjoying it a lot. I really like the magic system. I like that it's got so much to it. It's not just like colors do one thing. Each color has a different like mentality, different sides of that mentality. It's got they each have kind of like the luxin that they produce. Each have different qualities. It's a very in-depth magic system instead of just like, hey, this like green does armor and red is fire and blue is whatever. They can all kind of like they can all kind of do the same thing, but they all have different qualities and they all have different ways that they do that. Like yellow's liquid, it's hard to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that part. Let's see. I'm liking all the like the little twists in it. as far as like Gavin and his brother, and
More on that later.
yeah, more on that later. And we've got kind of like a little mystery going throughout it, like how did Kip end up there? What's this knife? Why is Corbin know about him if he was working for Gavin?
Mm-hmm.
And all sorts of stuff. But I'm enjoying it. It's pretty fun. I've listened to it like I started listening to it yesterday on the drive up to or over to Oklahoma, and finished it today while I was weld testing. And I mean I was hooked the whole time. Like I really didn't want to stop reading when I got here yesterday after the drive. So or not reading but listening. So I'm liking it a lot.
Yeah. What about you,
Yeah.
Whitson? How you feeling about it?
Man, I'm so happy that we are reading this book. Like, I'd heard good things about it for a while, and before I gush about it, I will say the one criticism I've heard like repeatedly is like there's some weird sexualization stuff, like the gaze, like male gaze, is pretty prevalent, I guess. But it's from the perspective of a 15-year-old boy, so I don't have that big of a problem with it. Like I can kind of buy into it. And
Right.
also everything else about the book is so much fun. Like it really I was talking about Furies of Calderon a bunch last month on the podcast. This book gives me the exact same vibes, where it's just like from the first moment, I'm like, oh, this world is unique. This magic system's unique. These characters are likable. The ones that I'm supposed to dislike, I really dislike. Like it's just doing everything right. Um, it's not really breaking the mold. Like it seems like it's a chosen one story. But I'm okay with tropes as long as you've got some unique stuff in there. And this book has a ton of unique stuff in it, so
Yeah.
I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I've enjoyed how much fun we are having. I think I sent a message in our group chat this week while I was reading. I'll be like, I think this is my favorite book we've done so far on the podcast, just because of how much fun it is. And it's like, yes, like Whitson, what you said with it does feel like it very much follows the mold, but the amount of twists that like are just thrown in there just subtly to kind of like slightly move the mold in a different direction lets you like sit here and it's just fun to think about. And I'm just having such a good time reading it. I'm really, really enjoying it. All of like the layers that keep getting added onto it also, I think make it very enjoyable. And it's also not like so complex that like you're having to like be like, wait a second, now who was this guy and what is his role on this or whatever. It's very straightforward, but also intriguing at the same time. I'm just really, really enjoying it. So yeah. Do we want to jump into some of like our characters and talk about them?
Yeah. So we could start with Kip, our main guy, or do y'all want to hop around a little bit?
I like starting with
Maybe.
Kip. I feel like that's a good jumping point. Um,
Okay.
so like
So,
I wrote
oh god.
down in our show notes that the first 100 pages of this book, I felt like we were just living with Kip as he was experiencing trauma that was just going to scar him for the rest of the book series. And I
Well,
wanted your guys' take on his trauma.
so like almost like last episode, I was talking about how it'd be really cool if he ended up being the bad guy. But like with all this stuff that's like the way his mom treats him and all these other people treat him, like it is not inconceivable that he could be a bad guy.
No, not at
And
all.
yeah, and the story could still go that way.
Well, we don't even know who the good guys and bad guys are yet, which I think
Right.
is really cool because Dazen took Giles or Gavin's spot,
Right.
Yeah.
right, as like the good brother, and he's been doing that. He's been
He's
being the
technically,
good brother
is he
this
the
whole
good
time.
brother though? Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe when Dazen like used to be Gavin, if he escapes, maybe he comes out as an evil bastard. Like we have no idea who's going to end up being,
Well,
morally the good guy here.
I think okay, so we're just gonna name them by their real names. So Gavin's in the prison and Dazen is He's the
Well-
Pretending to be Gavin.
Yeah.
Right. Do we want to do that? Because in the book, it does say that, like, Gavin, the real Gavin, while he's in the prison, he's like, if he's going to steal who he is, I'm going to steal who he was. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be Dazin. And I think that's just, which it's a very hard thing to write. Like, I could not imagine, like, trying to write these characters and being like, okay, how am I going to make it distinguishable that this is when I'm talking about Gavin, the actual Gavin, and this is who I'm talking about, the actual Dazin. And I think Brent Weeks did a good job of at least kind of describing that well and being like, okay, Gavin, who is actually Dazin, he is going to be referred to as Gavin in this book because he has taken on that role, and Dazin has gone crazy enough to think that he is now actually going to be Dazin. And so I think we should just call them by who they think they are. So, like, the Gavin is actually Gavin. Or
So my
Gavin
only
is...
thing with that, though, is like the Prism, the one whose perspective we see from, he's remembering stuff, and we don't realize it until we get this revelation, but he's remembering stuff as who he actually is, which is Dazin.
Right.
He's remembering the first time he danced with
Yep.
Karis,
Paris.
and was how he was supposed to seduce her or whatever, but he ended up falling in love with her. He remembers that, and he's so like his flashbacks are of his past, and so like I feel like we should, because I think it still hasn't talked a whole lot about the False Prism War, and I think we're going to see a lot of that, and so I think we're going to be seeing it from his perspective as Dazin.
I think after the chapter where he has the mirror scene where he's talking to himself, the ghost in the wall or whatever, and says that he's taking on that persona, I think MD's right on this one. I think we probably like go forward calling them Gavin
Just
and Dazin
to
because
fix
they
confusion and yeah.
Right, and as characters, like
That's where
they're
they are.
intentionally taking each other's spots. Like used to be Gavin is now like, well, I need to be the snake. I need to be the scheming, conniving one because he's got the upper hand. So I mean, they've essentially traded characteristics too. It's not like they're just pretending to be one another anymore.
Which is such a cool concept.
Yeah, they're both psychotic, and it's super powerful.
I don't know if y'all believe me or not, but I predicted this. I was
Okay.
reading it, and I predicted it 100%.
I thought about it. It was a thought in my head, and I was like, it's a thought in my head, but I was like, I don't know, because it's kind of confusing. I'll just wait until I know fully how this stuff works.
When the letter first gets there, and saying he had a son or whatever, and the White's asking him all those questions, he's like confused, like his mental stuff and like how he's saying things, like it's all mixed up. And so that was like my first big clue. And then another big clue comes when he actually admits to him about being his dad, but he does it he says he does it for a specific reason. I think he knew that the kid was actually real Gavin's and was like we said, becoming Gavin, taking his persona. So it's like, hey, I've got to claim this kid because it actually is Gavin's. So
yeah.
I didn't see it coming really, but what I did pick up on was like they would just refer to Dazin as the evil brother, and what I was picking up on was like they never bothered to clarify why he was the evil one. It was just he lost, so he must have been evil, basically.
History is made by the victors.
Exactly.
Which is so that's weird, because it's like, why would Dazin choose to be Gavin?
Because Gavin won. Gavin won. Dazin just beat Gavin in the 1v1.
Oh, okay. I must have
like Gavin's armies and political affiliations are all like in the green. They succeeded and beat Dazin, but Dazin somehow, tricked Gavin.
Right. Which leads me to kind of another thought process, which I've been having and wanted to have answered for so long and was about to until Whitson told me no, was how is their relationship with their father, or maybe even their mother at the time, if she was still alive, because we don't know anything about her. We barely know anything about the father, but it's like, did they really just allow their children to go to war with each other and have like probably hundreds of thousands of people die in each other's armies? Because like, I feel like a lot
What
of
are you gonna
times.
do? They're God's chosen. Like,
Well,
what?
not
And
You know
that's
what I
true,
mean?
but also it's like they're also their kids, and like you think about a lot um like fantasy stuff or like kingdom politics and things like that, and it's like a lot of kids and stuff won't act out or whatever while their parents are alive. The second they die though, that power vacuum happens, those wars break out, those things start. So part of me wonders, was it the mom keeping them together, because we don't know anything about the mom? The mom died and that was like, all right, now we're going to war. Did dad choose sides? Did they not choose sides? Did the parent, if the mom's alive, did they choose sides? Like, I have all these questions I want to know more about, because I feel like that'll give us more context as to maybe why Dazn was the way he is, or why Gavin was the way he was. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I just have all these questions floating around in my head.
it talks about speaking about the dance scene or whatever. It talks about how the dad is like a really conniving, power hungry guy, and like he's basically like grooming Gavin to be the Prism, and then was basically just like, hey, Dazn or whatever, you go. I need you to marry somebody so you get me some sort of political power. So I think there was some definite favoritism.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can only assume like if Gavin, like if he's really power hungry and Gavin was the one he wanted to, like he probably put everything into Gavin, and then at some point like it talks about how Corzin, I think, or Corvin, I mean, when he's talking to
Cannabis.
Karis,
Yeah.
when he's talking to Karis, he's like, the war was basically over a girl, which would be Karis. They both loved
Hmm.
Karis. And
Right.
so I think that's what it was really about, was the war was over Karis, and then it just like blew up into way more
Right.
Right.
than
Well,
Well, which
because they
is
both had the power of the prism,
right.
and
right.
I
Which is this
have a
the first time
theory
that's
about
ever happened.
that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I think that the reason that the father has been built up as the conniving, scheming, ultra powerful asshole, and the reason that there are two prisms, both his sons became prisms, and his grandson seemingly may be a prism. I think he did some like genetic experimentation on his children, or some, maybe it's magical, maybe it's like a blood right thing, or like some demonic shit, or like this old god that the whites are preaching about.
Yeah.
I think that their dad has something to do with that, and like bringing a lot of power into his bloodline, because it seems like Kip is going to be a prism too, right? I mean, that's
You can
what I
only
took away
assume.
from
Yeah.
chapter
Yeah.
55 or
Why
45.
that's why he hid the crystal.
Yeah,
Well,
and he was watching the results on the wall, and then his eyes went wide, and he shot Luxon into it to like block the light coming out of the
right.
wall, showing the results. So I think he had to have been, blocking the fact that
Okay.
Kip is the next prism.
Building off of that theory, um, does that maybe have something to do with one of the reasons why Gavin has lasted so long as Prism? Because normally it's 7, 14, or 21, and he thinks he's got a ticking time bomb of him of the 21 years. Like, I've made it past the 14, so now it's going to be 21. If he made a deal or something, maybe the old gods took away that, like, 7-year rule or something like that. And so maybe it could happen at any time. Maybe it can't happen at all, or something like that. I don't know. That's a cool rule concept to me that whenever I read, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like 7-year increments or whatever. But Kip's coming in at a weird time where it's like he still has 5 years left. So Kip will be
they weren't the prism from birth though. They became the prism. So
I'm interested in
maybe
that process too, because it talks about how the dad uh wanted him to be like. So how does one actually become the prism?
I have no idea.
I think they just have the powers of the prism, and then they're elevated politically to that position.
Yeah,
Like, and
because
there's supposed to only be one per generation, so it wouldn't be like hard to choose.
Yeah.
You have one option. But then he has two who are both still alive, and nobody else knows that the brother is still alive. But he has two sons who are both prisms, and then his grandson is also prism, and all three of them are alive at the same time. So I feel like something either religious or scientific, whatever, he's schemed something, and that has something to do with the prism.
Okay. Do you think it has something to do with like the white?
It could. We kind of got left on a cliffhanger with Karis after we find out that the white betrayed her.
Right.
Do you guys have any theories on that? Because honestly,
Dude,
I didn't see anything there. I didn't see it coming.
I don't know. There's so much. Like, after I read that scene and the council scene with like the prism talking to all of the different satrapies or whatever they're called, I
Mm.
was like, this is about to get so Game of Thrones. Like, I'm ready. People are going to start backstabbing each other left and right. Like, we already know that the actual Gavin is buried in a dungeon, like, somewhere that 2 people know are alive. Like, the amount of, like, daggers in people's backs that are going to be coming in the series, I'm now just expecting it and ready for it. So, it did surprise me, but after that, I was like, all right, throw it all at me. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. I
So
love the
like
way. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
the only thing reason I can think of is the fact that she knows that the prism is like how infatuated he is with her, and he thinks that the sun is going to be an issue, and because she wanted them both to come there, and so like she obviously wanted Kip around for some reason. And so, like, my only thing is, like, she thought maybe Karis would distract Gavin or something, so she sends her to get captured. Or maybe she wants Gavin gone. Maybe she knows that the real Gavin is in the prison and she
That's what I was
wants
gonna
other
say.
Gavin gone, and so she's using Karis as bait to send him.
Yeah. I feel like she could have done that at almost any time, though. Like anytime there was a white, right? She could have just, assumed he was going to watch him leave, be like, all right, he'll be gone for 2 days, 3 days,
Right, but
and then go
maybe
do it.
maybe it does have something to do with like the father set the prism or whatever to be this bloodline or something like that. I don't know. And she needed an heir to be the prism. And so now it's like, okay, there's a possible heir, bring them back to me or whatever. Now is the moment where she can start moving these pieces around and doing whatever political thing she needs to do to get them all to fall into the
I
right
don't know.
place.
If I'm the white, then I don't want another war or anything like that. So I'm gonna try to get rid of the other Gavin, but you also don't want uh or get rid of the prism so I can replace them with the one that's in the jail. But you don't want other people to know that. So like if she can sneakily get rid of him and then just have the other one appear like, oh, here I am and pretend to be the same person,
There's no
then there's
shot though.
no there's no war.
The amount of madness that has like affected the brother in the dungeon is like
Right. No, he's
I
crazy.
he's
Yeah.
absolutely mad. He is crazy. He's literally I love how they kind of like they had that Gollum multiple personality kind of thing going on where like he's like sitting at the wall talking to himself. He's fighting himself. He's like punching himself or whatever. And I don't know. I really like the way that scene was written out. It showed you this guy has gone crazy. He's been locked up in here for 14 years, barely talking to anyone. He's ate the same bread every day. He's gotten used to the smell of piss. Like
He spent the last 7 years using the oil from his fingertips to dig through stone.
to dig through stone,
Yeah.
and all he's
Yeah.
gotten is a tiny little bowl, and it's his life's work. Like, dude, it's I love how they describe him, and it's just so good. But there's no shot he is going to be implemented back into society.
No, I think he could be a big villain, obviously, because he still has his prism powers, and
Right.
that's what I was going to say a minute ago. I love how like powerful Gavin is, like, but it's not unjustified. Just like, um, infinitely stronger than everybody else. He's just better at using Luxon. Like
Yeah.
he's smarter about the way that he uses it, and the fact that he can use all the
And
colors is a big part of it. But
Talks about how
he's
intelligent they are too.
innovative with it
yeah,
too.
he's innovative with it. He
Yeah.
made a jet ski out of it,
Yeah.
and that is like the biggest technological revolution this world has ever seen. The fact that he can like fly this boat from one end of this ocean to the other. and the whole landmass is surrounding the central ocean, so he can get anywhere in the kingdom, 10 times faster than anybody expects him to be there is like a huge like plot point. So I really love the magic system and specifically the way Gavin uses it. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see Kip like get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of ready for him to quit being kind of a brat. Like I think
You think he's a brat?
no, not necessarily a brat. I just think
I just think he's a lost kid.
yeah, I think he's just got a lot of defense mechanisms, and those are getting in his way of
Yeah.
being
I
what he
usually
could
get
be.
pretty annoyed at people at like authors who write like the abused, dejected kid and do a poor job of it. Uh,
I don't think
and
this was
this one
poorly
feels
done.
pretty genuine.
But I
Yeah.
think the
Well,
reason
I mean,
why
like,
this feels so genuine was because, like I said at the beginning, we went through 100 pages of experiencing Kip's trauma with him.
right.
And so,
Yeah,
like,
his
we saw a little bit of him before where he was just like, yeah, my mom smokes a bunch and doesn't really love me, but, it is what it is. I've got my friend. Nope, I don't have my friends. Nope, I don't have my mom. Nope, I don't have my town anymore. Where am I? You know what I'm saying? Like, we
well, even his
saw what he had and then him lose it, and so we're kind of tied to him.
even his friends weren't his real friends.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, it seemed like he had a couple real friends,
Yeah.
but mostly he was the weird kid who was friends with Corvin, the old man with the eclectic, like eccentric vibe.
Who happens to be
he was
the
that
greatest
kid.
war general of all time.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, I will say, the magic system, I was kind of, I mean, I thought it was cool, for sure, but I didn't think that it was going to be very complicated until he got to the part under the chapel with Corvin and Karis, and it's like,
Dude.
it was an incomplete combustion, so this is all basically just gunpowder now, and like the whole explanation of all that stuff, the way
Yeah.
that he used the red light, I was like, oh, this series is gonna be fun.
Dude,
This
I
series is
knew
gonna
it
be
was so
really
fun too when it got to that scene, like when she fell through the floor and then whenever she finally gained consciousness, she said that there was just a giant egg with tubes coming out of it. And I was like, is this science fiction? Like, was this chapel like did it sit on top of like an ancient alien buried, something that buried or whatever? Like, is this about to hatch? What's going on? But then it turned out it just happened to be like a Luxon protective shield or whatever like that. And I was like, oh, okay, this is normal. We're not going space yet. But I just thought that was a fun little like MD doesn't know what's happening right now.
Well, he made like a vacuum chamber basically,
Yeah.
so the Luxon didn't like completely combust, and it was all just still sitting there, slightly charred.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I thought that was really cool.
he took the air out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that was badass.
Random side note, kind of while we're talking about like Gavin and Dazin and all this war or whatever. What do we think is going on with the army of whites that is saying it's charging in the name of, or it's assembling in the name of Dazin?
So there's a guy, right, or
Mhm.
a person, the color something,
Color blue?
the color prince. Is it the color?
Oh, the
Prince?
Color
He
Prince.
gets mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, the color prince.
Color Prince.
I'm kind of with Gavin. I feel like he's just using Dazin's name to like prop himself up. What do you think, Dylan? Do you have a theory on it?
I agree. I just think I mean, obviously, I mean, we see the conversation between the two brothers where unless real Gavin was using it or was like somehow outsmarted him, but the Prism was like he doesn't know about this, so the Color Prince must be using it just to prop himself up, which would make sense. Or he could even come back and pretend that he's Dazin. The Color Prince could. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in why Corvin left Dazin's army.
I think it was like
he
they
didn't.
lost the war, and so
it said that he lost the final fight because Corvin left him before the final fight.
No. What it said. I mean, you might be right that it's. I don't know. What he said was that he sent Corvin with a bunch of soldiers to accomplish something, and basically Corvin surrendering after they lost instead of fighting like to the man, like everybody's dead, he surrendered, and that set the tone for the rest of the war and saved like a shit ton of lives. That's what he was saying, I think. That's what I got from it. He was
Yeah,
saying like
maybe.
Corvin Danavis said, screw my own freedom, screw this cause, like human life is worth more than that. And that was like why so many people respect him, even though he was on the wrong side.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember. I remember it said that if he had fought for
If he had fought with
Davin
him
the
since the
whole
beginning,
time,
yeah.
he would have won.
Yeah.
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 But that also explains like why he's up in like what is it? It's in Tyria, right? Where he is.
Yeah.
I don't
Tyrion.
think it's a coincidence that he's there with
Kip.
Oh,
with
no
Kip.
shot.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think so either.
okay. Well, that can kind of have us go back to kind of like Kip talk about
And it said
for a
him and the
second.
mom showed up at the same time.
Yeah. So, okay. Random side note, and then we'll see where I'm following with this train because my brain's extremely ADHD. So Kip, he had a conversation or whatever in his mind about how he had always hoped that his dad was someone like who loved his mom and was going to come back and like help his mom out and do all this stuff. But then he just realized basically, oh no, this is my dad. She was just some other girl to him, didn't love her, didn't do anything like that. So then that like hurts him, but he's like, it is what it is. But then we go and we see Gavin and Dazin actually say who they are, and Dazin knows who Kip's mother is. Like he says the name of the mother, and it was very specific that like Dazin knew who that was. So like, does that mean that Kip's dad was actually loved her? Was this like an actual thing? What like all of those things? Does Kip's dad basically actually love him? And instead of his weird uncle who's pretending to be his dad, I just thought that was a really interesting aspect that I hope we get to see more of. Maybe some more backstory on who his mom is, how they met, what actually happened with that.
At the very least, he trusted the mom because he gave her the knife. Or yeah, he gave her that knife.
So was that knife? Because I know we went to the testing class or whatever with Kip, and they pulled out like obsidian edges, and they said that some weapons were made with it. Was that knife like the dagger, one of those obsidian knives that they talked about?
That can drain or whatever.
That can drain.
Yeah, drains Luxon through the blood apparently. But it has to come into contact with it for a while. So I guess you have to keep cutting somebody like in a prolonged fight.
And maybe that's why King Gardul wanted it, was so he could fight the Prism.
Yeah. Oh, also, I was saying Faradul last episode because that's what it sounds like in the audiobook. But then
Gardul.
I read I read that and I was like, why does it sound like an F in the audiobook?
I don't know. This is everything that's just going on in this book. I'm loving it.
Yeah. The stuff with the whites is super interesting. Do we think Karis is going to become a white at some point? And do we think that's her fate?
Okay.
Since she's getting
she's
so
really
close.
She's close.
She's so close to it because like she was talking about like she can't like she's having trouble controlling her anger now just as it is, and now like we saw her basically just storm off because like Gavin was like, hey, I fathered a kid. It's like, we're not married at all. We're not engaged at all. But like, I did father one. Well, how dare you? Blah, blah, and literally just straight up leave a mission because of it.
No, she didn't leave the mission. She was with him out of convenience.
Yep. What if that's the reason the white did it? She knows how close she is, so she's trying to get rid of her so that Gavin doesn't have to kill her.
Oh. That would make sense. That's a good, yeah.
And that keeps the white as a good guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
Well, and she is kind of afraid of Gavin. So I feel like her trying to like keep him sane would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, she said like straight up says he's the best Prism they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like as far as like good guy wise. She said that usually she has to deal with so much more BS.
Yeah, I mean he really has basically just like been with his room slave and done political shit or
And
military
killed,
shit
yeah,
for 15 years.
Killed
killed
all
all
the
these
whites.
whites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
he's more like spec ops than a
I'm
religious
assuming,
figurehead.
I'm assuming a blue one killed his mom. That's like the only thing. I'm
Yeah,
not.
that could be why he hates blues, or maybe she
Yeah,
became a blue white,
yeah.
and maybe that's why he hates them.
Oh. Okay.
Also, kind of, I don't know, like there's a word for it. Um, just the fact that he hates the blue whites so much, but he has his brother imprisoned in blue,
Well, that's
and
something
is
else I was gonna
forcing
say.
his brother to experience blue all the time.
It mentions towards the beginning, I believe, that even the prisms lean towards a certain color,
Hmm.
and I think it said that because it said that he leans towards blue and his brother always leaned towards red, and so uh uh I haven't noticed him like faking that though, or if that's even something people would notice. But like when it first talks about real Gavin uh in the prison, it says the first thing he tried to do was use red, and
Hmm.
we can see that uh uh the prism is using blue to, which I know it helps calm and like it has calming qualities to it too, but it's like his like kind of go to is blue. Even when he's fighting, his
Yeah,
first thing
and he
might be
uses it
blue.
for the sculler too, and when
Yeah,
he's making those bombs with the blue Luxem with the red inside of it.
yeah.
Right.
Most of the
He
stuff he
uses
does
blue for
has
most
blue.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good observation. Uh, what other story beats are we missing? We talked about the whites, talked about
Um.
Karis. We really haven't talked about Kip much in the
Kip,
Chromaria.
Kip and Liv.
Yeah. Liv was a big one. There's a lot going on with Liv, and like this what is this house that kind of controls her.
Yeah, yeah. So she's basically an indenture
Mm-hmm.
because they paid for her to go to school,
Yep.
uh, which is
And then
interesting.
she's like, "I'm gonna pay you back," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna kill your family if you don't. We're gonna
Yeah,
block you from basically being able to do anything you ever want to do if you
Yep.
don't cooperate with us."
But
And then they took the money anyways.
she's trying to be honorable and like only serve one master, but
Right. Do we
she had
think
keep getting her
do we think
away.
Corvin Danavis is gonna show up and that's all gonna change, or is Kip gonna be too deep for him to even help?
I don't think
I
Corvin's
don't
gonna
know.
make it to the Chromaria. I
I
feel
don't
like he's
know.
gonna be tied up in like Garriston or something.
I don't know Corbin's motivations. I
Me
don't know
neither.
who.
I have no
I don't know
idea.
whose side he's on. I don't know what his plan is. Like, I'm
Well,
assuming he's a good guy, just from like what we do know about him and the way he has acted. I'm assuming he's a good dude. But like, if that's the case, then why is he hiding Kip?
Mm-hmm.
maybe he knows that Dazen is still alive as Gavin, and Gavin is still alive, somewhere. Like maybe he does go to the Chromaria and he's there to break his old boss out of jail.
And so I think one of the biggest things we need answered that will help us understand a lot of things is what's the deal with the personality switch? Because the prism says like he completely changes, like part of it was becoming Gavin, but he also did it for other reasons, like personality switching. Like he tried to become the best person he could be. And we don't even know if actually like real Gavin acted like that.
Yeah. I mean, just the trauma of war, probably,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Like
also
I think
just
seeing seeing his friends
if he's gonna
die.
live that lie, he did say he wanted to change everything about him to be
yeah,
that lie.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of it's got to do with Karis too.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Well, I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, he ended the relationship with Karis, and it didn't explicitly say these back to back, but I think it's kind of inferred that Gavin broke off the engagement with Karis about the exact same time that he threw his brother in the prison. So about the same time of the switch is the same time that they broke off the engagement.
Do
Yeah.
you think maybe Gavin broke off the thing with Karis and then Dazen took his spot and couldn't do anything? because his brother had already broken it off because of Kip's mom, maybe?
Either that or
Oh, okay.
either that or Prism
I like it.
Gavin felt like he couldn't lie to her because he knew he had to pretend to be Gavin, and
Yeah.
he didn't want her to love
Right.
Gavin. He wanted her to love Dazen.
Yeah, well, he did say that's one of the clues in the beginning before you even know. It's like he couldn't be with her because then he'd have to tell her, and you're like, at the time you're like, oh, tell her that he's keeping his brother prisoner. No, that's not what he means. But yeah. I like Whitson's theory though that the real Gavin was like falling in love with Kip's mom and broke off the engagement for that.
But then Dazen becomes Gavin, and he's like, "Well, shit, I broke it off with her." Like,
yeah, Dazen became Gavin, and it had already been broken off, but he didn't know that at the time. And what if that was one of the main reasons why he wanted to become Gavin?
Yeah.
Because again, they're saying that the war was fought for a girl,
and she had picked Gavin at that point.
Yeah.
At least that's what it makes it sound like.
And so then that puts him. That could low-key be it. Whitson, you're a genius.
My deal is like, are they twins?
No.
I think they're only a couple years apart, and they look very similar.
It looks similar. It said that Gavin has a scar on his face or something like that. But they said it didn't matter because after the fight, they were so beaten up that you could barely tell who he was. And so it was just a matter of when he came out of that. Obviously, like his face shape is going to be different after being, probably broken nose,
cauliflower ear, broken
cauliflower,
cheekbones.
Yeah. So, I mean, people could probably just not even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a huge part of their motivation and all of it is like he was talking about the last time that they fought as boys. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think there's like something
in
that about the way that they could be so cruel and so violent to one another because they were brothers,
Yeah.
Like there's just, I don't know. I think anybody who is a young boy with siblings or like really close friends or like cousins they spend a lot of time with, like there's just, I don't know. I feel like that's a salient thing for
even like really close friends. It's way easier to be mean to your friends.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's almost like you take each other for granted, and it's like I don't know. It's like the thing that it's corny, but it's like love and passion, or or love and hatred, or like two sides of the same coin. Yeah. I think that's what he's kind of trying to get at with the whole thing, like the sibling rivalry aspect of it.
Yeah, but we also this third brother, Sebastian. What happened to him and all,
Yeah, I only like towards the end of this half picked up on the fact that the Sebastian person that was being mentioned was a sibling of theirs.
Yeah,
like it took me and probably until like chapter 44 or 45.
Wait, Sebastian.
He's mentioned when they're talking in the prison. He's also mentioned when in the scene Whitson was just talking about when they're talking about the last time they fought as boys. He said that Gavin went first, and then the next year or whatever, Sebastian went, and they both changed after talking to the dad. But then the dad never talked to.
Y'all, I do not remember reading that chapter. Either of those scenes.
So something was said to both the other boys that wasn't said to the youngest son, which is the Prism now. So I'm wondering what that was, and why he was excluded.
No, I think this next chapter is going to be a banger because we're going to learn so much more about the Guile family.
And like, are they the Lannisters or are they the Stark? Like, who is the head of this household?
If my theory about the dad, experimenting and making them all stronger is right, they might be the Targaryens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is Gavin or Kip Daenerys? Is that where we're going?
We start doing fantasy math equations. So if Kip equals Daenerys, then
Lightbringer Book 5 equals Season 8 Game of Thrones.
So is there anything else that pops out to y'all?
I
No,
think
we've
we hit
hit.
the big story
Yeah,
points.
we really
Yeah.
hit the big stuff, and the only other real thing is I like how the religion is like extremely intertwined with the magic and all that stuff. It's like, oh, you're going to this testing school or whatever. There's a religious ceremony involved in it, which is a little weird if you ask me. But I thought it was cool. And the reason why they had, the reason why they do it was to like fully get their fear out so that they can fully use their powers or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really liked it. I'm enjoying it. This is such a good book.
Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's going to break my like top 3 list or top 5 list, but I would recommend it 10 out of 10 times to 10 out of 10 people,
Yeah.
and I will 100% read the next one. So I
for
think it's a
sure.
great book. I think it's a great book.
Off of the first half of this book alone, this book has the potential to be in my top 3 favorite series of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit easier to justify entire series and like the whole arc of a series as being like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. But
like, it's a lot harder for one book to stand out as being like perfect.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm gonna end on a theory.
Okay. Hit us with
I think real Gavin gets out, and fake Gavin, so the Prism and then the prisoner, I think they get out, and real Gavin tells Kip he's his real father, and Kip feels betrayed, and I think Kip's gonna have to choose between real daddy or fake daddy. Uncle or dad.
I can see that.
I also have a theory that we kind of said but didn't really fully say. I think the color prince or whatever his name is going to be like, yo, shout out everyone. I'm Dazin. I'm the real Dazin. I'm here to rule or whatever. And that's going to put Gavin in the position of, do I break my secret and tell everyone? And like, people are going to believe the color prince. And that puts the real Gavin / Dazin in the position of being like, do I tell everyone? And I think he's going to go with I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to let my brother go. People are going to, but then that's just going to have things start just crashing down. I don't know how it's going to look, but.
What if the color prince is Sebastian and he's not really dead,
and
he's against the Prism because he thinks he killed his other brother?
This is shonen anime meets a soap opera.
Dude,
I
was literally
talking. Everybody's coming back from the dead.
I don't know who I was talking to, but I was talking to one of you this week about like, if this was adapted into something, I think it would be great for an anime. Because I feel like anime for the magic system would be so good. I don't think you would have to put a lot into a live action adaptation of this. But I think an anime could be done extremely well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'd almost be simple to animate because it's just like the streaks of color or like the color as objects. But it could go hard.
And the monologues too. Oh, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Right. Who's your favorite character so far before we wrap up? And also our TBR. We need to do our TBR.
Yeah. We'll do favorite characters. Dude, I don't know. I was going to be honest. Before we read the twist, it was Gavin. I was like, I love this guy. Mm-hmm. He's so good. Like, yeah, he's got this little dark secret. I'm so conflicted now about him. Like, extremely conflicted because it's like, yeah, he's this good guy, but is he really? No, he's not. And so you can't trust anything he says at all. And then I'm like, I don't really like Kip because he's kind of whiny, but he's also like the 15-year-old boy, so it makes sense. I think my favorite character right now is going to be Liv, just because I'm excited to see where she goes. I'm excited to see what her story is going to be, because I think it's gonna really have a major impact here pretty soon.
Okay. What about you, Dylan?
I really like Gavin, but I think Corvin's a close second. If I had a little bit more on Corvin and understood his motivations, I think it'd be Corvin.
Okay. I like Kip. I like Kip a lot. I think I relate to him though. He's a chubby kid. He's smart, but like, the people around him. Yeah, I relate to Kip a lot, and I'm excited to see him snap because I think he's angry. Like, I think at the heart of it all, he's an angry kid who wants to be kind. Like he wants to be kind, but the world won't let him, and so he's pissed, and he gets more pissed and more pissed while he's getting stepped on.
Like I said, he's just got a bunch of defense mechanisms, and I think
Yeah,
eventually he's gonna quit throwing out the good, like the easy defense mechanisms, like the witty comebacks and all that. He's just gonna
and he's
snap.
just gonna snap. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I vibe with that. I like Kip as a character. I think he's well written,
Yeah, I
even
think
if he
he's.
is, if he
I
comes
just
across whiny or whatever.
I don't really know. I don't really know if it's whiny. It's just I wouldn't say it's whiny. Like I
Yeah,
said, he's
I
just
don't
got a
think so
lot.
either, but
He's got a lot of defense mechanisms, which is
yeah,
100% fair for what he's gone
yeah, I
through.
mean, he's a
right.
beaten dog. Like he
Yeah.
spooks
Yeah,
easy.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
I'm just I think my biggest problem with Kip isn't really even a problem. It's just I think he's going to get like a lot more potential, and I'm ready to see him get there. And so I don't necessarily not like what he is now, but like I just think I'm gonna like what he becomes way more than I
Do
don't
you
know if
think
that
it's
makes
kind of
sense.
just like a chosen one fatigue? Like you just kind of want to get to, like, just get to the
Yeah,
fucking point already,
Yeah,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
I,
yeah,
thing?
I
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
kind of where I am with it too.
I'm enjoying the journey of like discovering the world enough that it doesn't really bother me. Also, this he has already surpassed Rand al'Thor like page count, page for page,
Oh
how
yeah,
much development they go through. He
yeah.
not which is not to say that Kip is better than Rand al'Thor. I'm not making
YouTube
an
comments are coming,
evaluation
Whitson.
here, but I'm just saying like, a page count versus page count, like the amount of character growth that has happened. I would say Kip has grown a lot, like a lot in this half of the book.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, he was basically just crying at the beginning, and then he gets traumatized, and then he gets traumatized again, and then he gets traumatized again, and now he's making like witty remarks and like snapping at people and getting angry about the stuff. He's not just taking it lying down anymore,
hmm
you know.
Right.
So I'm excited to see where he goes.
yeah. You want to get into our TBRs before we wrap up?
Yep.
I can go first. I am still pushing through the Great Hunt, which I don't have. It's in my backpack right now. I am probably about 2/3 of the way done. I'm really enjoying it. I've finally gotten to the point where like Whitson was probably like, "How did you put this book down?" I think I put it down the chapter before things started happening, and so
Yeah.
I'm finally at the point where things are starting to roll. And I don't open up and I'm like, oh, we're still here. I open up and I'm like, okay, we're here now. And so hoping to finish that by next week. So that's me.
No. What else are you reading, Dylan?
I'm still in the Faithful and the Fallen series. I've just been off work. I'm about to start work back again though, and I'll be pushing through books like it's nothing again. And so I'll finish it, and then my next book is to read is the Eye of the World or the first book.
Hey, he's joining us. Okay,
Hey.
well,
Well,
I'm
I wanna
still
get it done before the series comes out, so we can all watch the
season
uh
2.
season 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna finish season 1 after that first episode. Jesus. Are we releasing that? Do we want to plug
I'd
that?
like to. I'd like to. So
We'll have to figure out how to get around copyright. But we recorded me reacting to the first episode of The
yeah,
Wheel of Time.
it
season
is
1.
such a good video.
But speaking of The Wheel of Time, I'm still reading Academ's Fury and The Dragon Reborn. I think I talked about Academ's Fury last
You
week.
did
I think
last
I'd
week.
started
You
it.
briefly mentioned
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, pretty fun so far.
You want to talk about that sticker that's on the book that you can't take off?
This is actually the library's copy.
Oh, there you go.
But they also got the not a sticker
yeah,
on their copy. So
I know that's just your favorite thing. Meanwhile, I have started collecting all the hardcovers. I have all of the hardcovers except for one now. And so I'm very excited about that. My library is almost full. If you can see my shelves, I'm running out of room, which is a good thing.
Oh,
Because
if you're
once I run out of room-
interested in this section of the show, the TBR, where we talk about the other stuff we're reading, check out our TikTok. We're all
Yeah,
making
yeah.
videos around the books that we're reading,
Yeah.
not for the podcast.
We're gonna try to do that more, and then once we all read a book, we're gonna try to do like a little short 20-minute YouTube video of it where we all talk about it, and then
Yeah, maybe like one shot kind of stuff. We were thinking about maybe Tress or
yeah,
you know,
and possibly having a
we could
special
do.
guest on Tress
Possibly.
if she finishes soon. So, with that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up our episode. So make sure you share, like, subscribe, or follow on your preferred platform. We're on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Go ahead and join our Discord. Links in the YouTube video. Follow us on TikTok. It's at the Tome Traveler Pod. And yeah, let us know your fantasy questions in the YouTube comments. Share with your friends. And yeah, we will see you all in the next episode when we finish the Black Prism.